Party with your host, Dustin Rybka.
Hello and welcome to Sex Party. I'm your host, Dustin Rybka. With me on the show this week is adult performer and OnlyFans creator Molly Manning. Molly is in her 40s. She started an OnlyFans during the pandemic. She's Australian. She's living in LA. We talk a lot about facials in this conversation. We talk a lot about dating as an adult performer. We talk about, how doing OnlyFans is a hustle. It's work, but it's also incredibly rewarding if you play it the right way. At the end of the episode, Molly talks about wanting to do a gangbang. There is so much in this episode. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Molly Manning.
This week's conversation.
Molly Manning, welcome to Sex Party. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Yeah. We had some technical issues. We worked them out. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to start a podcast, I've reached a level of podcasting where now everyone's asking me for advice. And my first piece of advice, if you're going to start a podcast, is take a very, very long nap because you're going to need your energy, your strength. We persevered through the technical issues, though.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so let's say someone is tuning in and they're like, who is Molly Manning? I need the crash course. The last couple of years, right? During the duration of your career, your rise to where you are now. Yeah, it's been a couple of years, right?
I've been shooting mainstream for about just a year.
Okay, so a year, and then there's we're giving it away already. Like the OnlyFans was before that, right? A little bit, right?
Yes.
So okay, so let's say someone has been taking that nap that we want them to take before they start their podcast. They've been asleep for 2 years. They're Rip Van Winkling their way through life, and we applaud that. And I'm jealous. But who is Molly Manning, and what does she do?
Okay, who am I? I am a 49, nearly 50-year-old Australian woman. I was born and raised in Perth, Western Australia, so went to school there, grew up there, went to university there. I moved over to the US in my early 30s and around 2008, and then I had a son in 2010, and I have been here since then, which is quite a long time, really. And who am I? I'm an adult actress, and I'm a content creator and a model. I'm also a mother to a son, a teenage son. I'm single. I like to do a lot of running. I like to cycle, like to hit the gym a lot. So I'm super into my fitness. I really got into that when I turned 40. You know what? You just put me on the spot. Like, who am I?
So, no, I think those are great answers. They have enough information. They don't need any more than that. And plus, we're going to dig around in your life and find fun things to talk about. You said you're single. You're an adult actress. You're an OnlyFans creator. You're single. What is that like? Is it a nightmare that everyone says it is? Being in the adult industry and being single is really difficult, or what is your experience?
I think for me personally, because I have just decided I had a really bad breakup in 2020, and I know I've really decided that I feel like, my main focus is my son and to sort of see him through to adulthood. So I'm not really looking to get into a relationship, so to speak. I have always been the kind of person who always enjoyed my own company. I spent a lot of my time when I was younger riding horses. So I would just spend hours out, on my horses out in the bush. And so I'm very comfortable in my own company. I've actually had a lot, like over the years, I've had really long spells of being single. So I really like to be single. I mean, it would take a lot to move my needle to actually really want to sort of really engage with a person, because there's so many other things going on. And I know for me that if I do meet somebody that I'm like super into, that I become a bit obsessive about things. And so I kind of feel like at the moment that I just don't need that. So I'm not actively dating, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I'm open to it, but I just haven't really come across anybody that I would want to go on a date with.
Well, what are your prerequisites? And also too, before you answer that, I love that you said in the bush, right? Because you're Australian.
Yes, that's what we call it.
This podcast just happens to be when I look at the statistics every single week, which is insane. It's America, the country that downloads, the most and
Right,
listens the most, and then
Mhm.
right underneath, though, very close, is Australia, and we've had
Oh,
a lot of
really?
great Australian guests. So shout out to Australia. I'm gonna bring the
Yes.
show over there and do a small tour at some point in the next couple of years. I will
Aussie,
see you
Aussie,
soon. But
Aussie.
we love Australia. We love In the Bush. That might be the episode title already. Who knows, right? So,
Well,
but
yes,
okay.
into the wild.
Yeah, enough of those shenanigans for now. When you being an adult actress, I mean, do you have certain prerequisites that you might not have? I mean, obviously you want somebody to be cool with your work and what you do, but what do you like casual? What else are you looking for?
Like to date?
Yeah, like what would you need to be like, all right, I guess I can entertain this fucking person.
I think the number one things for me, humor is a really big one on the top of the list, as well as confidence, intelligence, and I really just think somebody who can make me laugh, like that skill is truly invaluable, and it's really high up on the top of my list because life is tough, and life is painful, and there's always things going on, and I think you need to be able to laugh at yourself, and just if you don't laugh sometimes you'll cry, right? So
Yeah.
I think like all the best comedians always come from like a tortured place. Not that I would say I'm
Yeah.
in a tortured place or come from a tortured place. Yeah, I it's funny, I mean, like to just date and like hang out with is sort of I'm not the kind of person who's really like a time filler, you know what I mean? So
Sure, yeah.
because I have, my teenage son at home who really likes to spend a lot of time with me. Um, yeah, it's okay for me at the moment to really not be dating. I'm
Yeah.
pretty aware that like once he gets out of the home, which I'm going to encourage that. You know, well, you know how there's a lot of kids living at home until they're in their 30s. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think then I'll have more time to kind of think about it. But I also am very aware that usually when you're least expecting something, it kind of comes out of nowhere and hits you,
Yeah,
which is what happened
absolutely,
with
yeah.
which is what happened with my last relationship. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I used to always date stockbrokers and guys in finance. So it was always a guy wearing a suit and a tie, which I don't find in LA at all.
Yeah.
So you don't find that. But yeah, I guess I I don't really know what I could say. I mean, as I said, I'm single, so
Yeah, no. Well, they're going to be flooding over the inbox now trying to shoot their shot.
oh, they do trust me. They do trust me, but I
I could
just
only imagine.
I just like I'm apprehensive, and honestly, too, I did come out of like a horrendous breakup in 2020, so I
Mm.
would say that I'm a little gun shy.
Oh yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Do you hit them with right away? Like if you go, I mean, have you been on many dates in the last like year or two or no?
I honestly have not, and so
Okay.
I think I haven't had to try to deal with the telling people that I'm an adult actress, because it's not the kind of thing that I think I want to come out with. It's not
Right.
something that I would want to come out like immediately, like just blurt that out immediately. But also at the same time, it's not something that I would want to go on 5 dates with a guy and then he
Right.
discovers this several months later. So I do believe in transparency.
Hmm.
But I haven't been on any dates.
But so if you were going to tell someone that we're looking at potentially like a second date chips and salsa situation where you would say, you know, before the menus get to the table, you're eating some chips and salsa, you've been on a successful date, there's some flirting, you're like, oh, and by the way, listen, there's something I need to tell you. And you sort of hit him with it before anything gets too serious, right? That's ideally.
Well, I think the beauty about this in one respect is like my real social media, you know, under my like real true personal name, I was never super active on any of that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I feel like if I was going to actively try to date, I may just put that in my profile that I'm an adult actress just to, you know, I don't want to mislead anybody. I believe that there's somebody out there for everybody. And there seems like there's a ton of men that are attracted to that, you know, and there's also a bunch that are not attracted to it. And, you know, why cross paths with guys that it's a hard no, you know? Or, I mean, obviously in the back of every guy's mind is like, oh yeah, I'd like to fuck her. And then, you know, but if you're really looking for a relationship, so to speak, you know, however that may be defined, yeah, I see how it could be problematic. I have not really tested the waters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think when you do, it's going to be a fucking blast, and you should come back and talk about your the experiences that you have whenever you should choose to. I totally know what you mean. I was single for like 6 years, I think, this last go around before I met my girlfriend now, and it just felt fucking awesome. Like it just felt like really awesome. I had a relationship that, or a couple relationships that it was sort of like, you know, they were great people, but it just wasn't going to work. And so I needed to take some time to figure out what I wanted, what potentially I was doing not great in those relationships. And also like, there's nothing better than going to a movie by yourself. I don't care what anybody says. And if you
I
can get comfortable with
100% agree.
yeah,
100% agree because I'm very comfortable in my own company.
yeah, me too. And I always would, regardless. You know, and I've told these fucking stories, and so I won't go into it all. But you know, I always would go to a bar by myself, and like within 20 minutes, I'm in some kind of fun trouble. You know what I mean? Like people want to know, like, what the hell is this guy a cop? Is this guy? Why is he here by himself? Whatever. And so I think there's
like that, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And you can create, not saying you want to lie, but you sort of could create your own adventure from there. You can tell people what if they ask or whatever.
Of course, you're in control of the whole narrative.
Yeah, and it can be a lot of fun. And also too, like, you know, coming from your standpoint, it's would even be more interesting because there are a lot of men that are like, would be totally against it, right? And then, oh, I can't do that and whatever, and get up and leave or whatever. But then there would be some men that would probably be like super down with it. So it'd be really interesting. So when you do get out there, we may have to have you back on to talk about your experiences. Okay, so I have a million questions, and we're just gonna go where we go, right? Well, we have wonderful notes from Erica at the Rub PR. Shout out to Erica. Shout out to the Rub. She's fucking brilliant. We love her. And in the notes, it says that, you know, before you got into any of this craziness, OnlyFans, adult, whatever, that you were a Pilates instructor and like really into health.
I'm a certified Pilates instructor. Yes.
Okay. So this is fascinating to me because I've been making the case that porn stars are athletes, right? And so, you know,
yeah, I am an endurance athlete. Like I ran 2 marathons last year. I've done an Ironman.
Sure.
You know, when I turned 40, I just took a corner. Like I took that route, which is a weird route to take, but I just became super fit.
I totally get it. Yeah.
Which is it's not the common route. But yeah, no. So I'm a certified Pilates instructor. I was working at Equinox. I'm not teaching Pilates at the moment. I did have a couple of clients. I do have like a Cadillac table actually set up in my apartment. But no, I'm really, yeah, as I said, you know, I like to lift weights in the gym. I like to cycle on the road. I like to run. I haven't been swimming lately, but I'm super active. I usually hike Mount Whitney once a year.
Nice.
I get to do it this year just because I'd had some surgery. But I think next year I'm just going to do it on my own because it's a monster hike. It's 22 miles round trip.
Yeah, that's insane.
But I actually feel
Yeah.
confident to do it on my own.
Well, I mean, can you talk a little bit about how maybe being athletic and, being a Pilates instructor and a crazy hiker, because obviously you are, and, cycling and
hiker,
swimming
yes.
and how that all comes, it's not an easy thing to do, how it all comes in handy when shooting porn, because I think, again, shooting porn is not easy. It's endurance, it's stamina, it's athleticism, I think. And so, I think there's a connection between those two.
Well, yeah. So the beauty about porn, which you don't have in a marathon, for example, is you stop and start, right? In a marathon, you just go. So there's a lot of, takes, there's a lot of stopping and starting, resetting. But I do think how all that stuff works well is, obviously I keep myself in shape. It's in my best interest. The last thing I want to do is see myself on camera and think, oh, I don't like that. I'm out there for, on public display. So I want to, look at myself and feel confident. But yeah, I would say, I don't know. I haven't, well, let me just think. Yeah, so most of the things that I've done, there's always been like stopping and resetting, changing the camera positions. But I haven't had the fortune of being on a set for 12 hours on a porn shoot. So I'm sure, if I was, that's a long day.
Well, I mean, even stopping and starting, right? Like certain positions are hard to hold for the average human being. You know what I mean?
I guess so. Yeah. So I'm very athletic. I'm very strong. I can do push-ups and so yeah,
right.
That's definitely true. Yeah. There are a lot of I've got quite strong thighs. So I've heard some people say, oh, nobody can ride me for that long because they're not very strong. But I just have to make sure that I've never been at the gym that day or the day before, because I have done that before and my quads are like on fire. Oh my God, my legs are killing me.
Yeah, you want to separate leg day from porn shoot day. That would definitely be
yes.
Not a good combo. But I mean, again, the stopping and starting thing is really interesting too. But I think it also has disadvantages because it's like, oh fuck, I just held that goddamn position for this long, and I got to get back in that same exact place. The camera's over here, and there's just endurance in a stop start sort of way. And I think everybody that I've met through this show has been incredibly fit, athletic, and can hold their own when it comes to that. And I love that. I just think there's such a connection. Well,
I do remember when I was much younger and sex was definitely a sport for me, in my 20s and early 30s. And so I would say, maybe less so now, just because obviously you go through different phases of your life with child rearing and all of that.
Sure.
But yeah, no, you definitely do need to have some athleticism for sure. Yeah. I mean, and some of the positions, yes, you're right. Like they do require a lot of strength.
Yeah, I mean, holding a fucking reverse. Yeah, that's the first one I thought of. Like that's gonna be tough.
Yeah, and their arms are like all bent back, and they're on their chest, and you're kind of like basically doing a dip.
Yeah, and that's for most people. They'd be like, okay, I'm done after 3 minutes. You know what I mean? Right. Because civilian people just can't hang in the porn world, and that's why we have porn stars, right? And I think a lot of people who get into porn and they're civilians and they get into porn, they realize, shit, I gotta hit the fucking gym. Even the dudes, obviously,
they should. I mean, they should.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, that being said, and again, we're going to bounce around. We're not going to tell, a linear, story here. Like it's that's boring, right? Let's do the multiple choice version. Let's bounce all over the place. But so, So the multiple choice version, who knows what I'm even saying at this point, right?
It's
But
fine.
I
It's
think we don't want to be boring on Sex Party ever. Okay, so that being said, what kind of content have you shot? You said you've been in mainstream for a year. I
yeah.
mean, is it the typical boy girl, or is it boy girl girl, or like, what's the spectrum look like so far?
It's mostly boy girl, and then I haven't done any straight girl, but and then it's been me with me plus girl boy, like I'm the third person,
Sure.
like I'm the grandma, then there's the mum, then there's the granddaughter and grandson kind of scenario. It's so wrong. Like I did not. I just didn't think about that side of it when I got into it. But I,
Mhm.
I must admit, sometimes when you read these scripts, I just it is super funny, and I do get a little personal thrill out of it because it's so
Sure.
absurd, and it's so taboo.
Mhm.
It's funny.
Well, this is very interesting, right? Because we get into this a lot on the show. And if you go to Pornhub, which you're apparently quite popular over there, we're going to talk about that in a moment too. But the top three, the top five is always like stepmom,
Oh,
stepson, daughter swap, stepdaughter swap, fucking family, fucking
it's the
canoodles or
the
whatever. Yeah.
process. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that taboo sort of vibe. And so we've had creators on the show and stars on the show who actually are like quite into it because it is so taboo, and they say it turns them on. But then we have other creators that are like, it's kind of too much for me, but I'll do it. And then there's other ones that are like, I don't care, whatever. So where do you fall in that?
I probably fall to the latter two. Like I don't care, and I
Yeah.
I just get a little private kick out of it being so absurd.
Hmm.
I did shoot a scene the other day on Monday, and I looked at the guy's birth date, and it was 2002, and I'm born in 75, for example.
Right.
So I'm like, I just have to. There's a brief moment where I'm like, oh, you're so young, because somebody asked me, they were like, would you have a problem shooting with an 18-year-old? And I'm like, no, because I'm really good at just boxing something away in my mind. But
Hmm.
obviously, I have a teenage son myself. But there is an element to where you sort of think, oh wow, they're so young. But my attitude is, as long as they're of legal age, and I'm not going to get in trouble, it's fine.
Sure, sure. Well, and I have to say, and for the people listening to this on the audio experience, do not run to YouTube if we're still on YouTube. Who the fuck knows at this point? They really have been not very great.
Not
But
friendly.
yeah, no. They're like the censorship is crazy. But if we are still on YouTube at this point in the future, don't run to YouTube. Finish your audio experience, then go take a look on YouTube. But what I'm going to say is, it's hard for me to imagine someone casting you as a grandmother. I can see MILF for sure, but not grandmother.
So apparently, I think once you're over like 35 or 30 something, you could be a grandma. So when I played the grandmother, I must admit, I was shocked, but
Yeah.
it's kind of weird when, the woman that's playing your daughter is, well, what, she was probably in her early 30s, I guess. So, she's like, what, 18 years, 17, I guess technically she could be my daughter, but no, I still have a 16-year-old teenager. So, for me, like, I'm not ready to be a grandmother right now.
Yeah, no. And that you do hear that a lot. Like there's even like some women who've been on the show have told me on the show, and then privately, like they're 24, 25, and
Oh,
they're
and
trying to cast them as MILFs and shit. And
they
it's like,
do.
it's wild. It's wild that that's the thing. But so are you getting cast as a fucking gilf and a milf, or just do they go right to the gram? That's crazy if they do that.
I don't. So I I've only been cast as the gilf in like a scenario with in a family scenario,
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I'm sure maybe once I actually reach 50, which will be on the 1st of February. maybe I will be officially cast as a gilf. I don't know.
So, okay, but are you doing MILF roles too?
Yeah, so it's usually always me with a younger talent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that
which
makes
I was
sense.
kind of happy about, because I must admit, when I first got into it, I was thinking, if I was young, if I got into this business and I was 18, 19, 20, I would be with much older men. So, it's actually, I was like, I can handle that.
Okay, well, just a verbatim, just straight to the point question: how is the sex with younger men?
So sex for me personally is really like a mental, there's multi layers to it. So I think on a set for me, I'm very aware of that I'm there. It's a performance, there's a lot going on. You really have to make sure you sort of hit your marks, and you're always open to the camera. But I would just say, I mean, so younger men for me, like, they're nice to look at. They feel, they're young, but I do personally, if I was to date somebody or really spend time with somebody, they'd have to be, my age or older, because it's just hard to connect.
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, there's, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and to every, everybody's different. Everyone, I promote a fucking healthy, give it a try, whatever. So it's not that we're not kink shaming or relationship shaming anyone. I'm the last person to. My girlfriend is over 10 years younger than I am, or whatever, and we used to take shit for that, but I mean, who gives a shit, really?
I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters at all. I mean, it's just about
neither do I.
But I have had some super hot sex with a couple of younger guys, but it was a little while ago, and I I'm the kind of person, if I find something I really like, I just want to do it more and more. So I have been a little kind of cautious about that.
Sure. Well, I mean, in the scenes, I mean, obviously you're a professional, you're trying to hit your marks, you're trying to do whatever, but like, I would imagine some scenes are better than others personally, and I'm not going to ask you which ones. Sometimes sometimes you're enjoying yourself more than you would in other situations or whatever.
Or the person has just better energy sometimes, sometimes people just really give off really good energy, and that you're attracted to more than others.
Yeah. So, okay. So when you are shooting with somebody younger at first, you were kind of like, oh, like sort of take it back. But it sounds like you kind of like got through that pretty quickly and have learned to enjoy the sex with younger men on set, at least, right?
I mean, I must admit, I would say, my everyday kind of life. I'm a mum, so I would say I'm not swinging off the chandeliers anymore, what I did in my 20s and early 30s. But it gives me like freedom to go off and do those little taboo things. And I do, like, it really, it does add a layer of excitement to my, I would say, somewhat boring life sometimes. Although I'm not a boring person at all, but, like, compared to what my life was like when I was a lot younger, it's definitely slowed down, and it could be considered boring. But
I doubt it.
But no,
I doubt it.
I do like it. I mean, I probably wouldn't want to engage in it, like, if I wasn't on set, just because I like, if I really, for me to have really good sex with somebody, there has to be something going on up here. Like, there has to be a really strong mental connection, not just a physical connection. So, and I think to have really good sex, you sort of have to have like a spiritual, intellectual, and physical connection.
Yeah.
And you can't have that when you don't know somebody, and you're there prior, hair and makeup, and then they sort of just show up and they're ready and they're like, "Hi, I'm so-and-so." Hi. And you're like, "Hi."
Yeah. Well, okay. And so the stuff you shot has been primarily, like we said, boy girl and boy girl or whatever. This kind of content. I mean, are we doing like cream pies? Are you doing facials? Are you doing
all of it?
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, what do you prefer if you had to choose?
Well, it depends. I'll be honest. It depends on what I'm doing afterwards. Like if I've got to go get my son from school, then obviously I prefer a cream pie. I don't want to show up like.
That's a good point.
I mean, I like a good facial when the guy. I mean, I guess I was just told the secret to it is you just got to. But I've shot a few facial scenes. I shot a couple of collabs just with Manuel Ferreira, and like I have like 2 awesome videos where he just.
Yeah,
But strangely enough, in my own private life, like I've never asked for that. I've never in my private life ever said to a guy. It's probably it's a porn thing, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's obviously where it comes from for sure. But has a guy asked you that in your private life?
I don't think so, because when I was younger,
Wow, okay.
I was down for anything when I was younger. And no,
Yeah.
I particularly had this one long kind of thing with this dude who was I met him, I was about 18, he was about 16. And we kind of had an on-off thing for like 20 years. And I mean, and we had sex like all over the place. And I mean, and it was obviously good because it went on for a long time.
Clearly.
But you know, in that experience where, you know, we did all sorts of crazy stuff, no, it just never came up. So
yeah,
I haven't had too many. I don't think I've ever had
or they were too scared to ask. Probably that's what I think.
Maybe they were too scared.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that has permeated the culture the last like 25. I mean, it's been there forever, but I definitely think it's the last 25, 30 years. I mean, you have some heavy hitters in there that kind of made that their thing. Like your Jetta Jamesons, your Tory Blacks, your, you know, all of those people are kind of like, you know, turn that more mainstream, I think.
Right.
It's funny. Yeah. I just remembered the first time that I did that to someone, and she actually asked me to, and then that created a monster, because then I just could never stop thinking about it. To this,
your thing, right?
To this day, it's like my thing. So yeah, I mean, it's something that I enjoy. I think the most. It's just some sort of thing that just like I had seen it in porn, and then I think I was in college, and she asked for that, and it was like bing, and there's like, oh, there's no going back now, you know, or whatever. But I had no idea that it would turn into, you know, some lifelong thing.
It's incredibly visual, you know. So I get that, and I also get the element of like kind of like maybe like a marking your territory kind of thing.
Yeah, and then it's like so it's demeaning. It's sort of like, obviously with consent, it's like a demeaning sort of controlling power thing as well.
As long as everyone's fine with it, then it's not. But
yeah, of course. Yeah. You don't forget consent, guys. You fuckers. Remember. Always check in. Yeah, God. Yeah, don't go around shooting your loads on things without permission. That's not.
Civilians do all kinds of stuff, like, you know, you like just, you know, random, like unexpected, or just things where you're like, oh, hang on a minute, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think we just well, even like and we talk about this a lot, but it's like just the way that there's no, I don't want to say education, but it is education. There is no education around like not only sexuality, but consent. And it's such a weirdo kind of thing. And especially in this country, I think Australia is way better about it. They're not perfect, but they're way better about sort of like the culture of, why do we like this? Why are we doing it? Why should we ask first? Sort of thing, you know?
I think Australians are a bit more comfortable openly talking about sex. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you guys are great. From my experience, especially because it's like, you know, the whole, every time I had somebody on, like they bring something new to the table, and from Australia.
About Australia.
Yeah, well, it's just like the understanding around it. You know what I mean? Like there's not this big blowout. If you're talking about like reproductive right or anything, there are issues in there, but they seem to sort of be able to not be as ashamed. I think the shame is what probably is missing from Australia, which is great, which we love.
I don't know. I mean, I think all that sort of stuff, it really just stems from, your upbringing, I guess, and like just your environment, which is affected by
Yeah.
what we watch on TV and our parents and what we learn in
Mhm.
school and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm able to talk openly about sex with my son, which is a huge blessing. But like, I
Yeah.
couldn't really, I didn't, I was born in the 70s. My mom, was born in 1951. Um, so things were just different then, you know what I mean? It was like more people, and my mum's Scottish, so she was born in Scotland. But, my mum was quite stoic, and, that's just how people were then. So, they just
Yeah.
didn't really openly talk about things. So I think it's a real
Right.
blessing
Yeah.
because otherwise, like with my son, for example, just being able to talk to him about sex and, otherwise they're learning it from the schoolyard, or they're just learning it
Mhm.
from, Pornhub or whatever. So I think it's important
Yeah.
that they can actually have an adult tell them, you know what I mean? Otherwise, yeah, God knows what they're learning from their friends at school.
Yeah, I mean, and that brings up multiple different points. Number one, porn is entertainment as it should be. No one's going to Pornhub and saying, I just want something that looks exactly like the same old sex I'm having. You know what I mean? They
But
go
no,
there
no,
because it
you go in there purely for entertainment. Yeah. So, and
absolutely.
that's what I made sure I just said to him. I'm like, that it's not real. You know what I mean? It's a performance.
Right.
So, so I just wanted him
Mhm.
to know. And I was like, most females don't want that.
Yeah, and again, like you just have to like we have to somehow break this idea that you can't talk about it. You gotta, whether it's you with your son or whether it's someone on a fucking second date over the chips and salsa. I don't know why I keep going back to chips and salsa, but here we are. You got to talk about the things that you like and the things that you don't, and sort of like this idea that we're just all supposed to be intuitive and know, right? There has to be conversation.
And you just don't, and it's really by trial and error. Otherwise, you're yeah. It's interesting because I remember when I was a lot younger, I just didn't really have the confidence to really tell a person what I really needed myself, and
Mhm.
mostly just
Mhm.
from fear of being rejected. I can see, but as
Sure,
I got
yeah.
older, you become more confident, and I've also done a lot of work on myself and got to know myself better. And I'm okay to actually ask for things that I need, but I do remember being a lot younger and being, yeah, just, embarrassed, awkward, uncomfortable. But,
Yeah,
communication is the key to any sort of relationship, whether it's, your
sure.
parents or, your work colleagues or whatever it is, but nobody's a mind reader. And if you leave it, I find even when you spell things out to some people, even then there's room for like misinterpretation. So if you don't say
Yeah.
what you know,
Yeah, I mean, I think the person that goes out on the wire and tries to walk it and takes that risk is the one that's going to get the biggest payout out of it. The one who's like, hey, honey, tonight we should try, I'm going to pretend like I'm the neighbor and I'm breaking in or like, or whatever. You have to go there and sort of set the bar, and then they can either take it or be like, that's really interesting or whatever. But you're absolutely right. You have to communicate, and someone has to go first.
right.
And I think that's even when you spell it out, people are still, someone can be like, well, I told you to pull my hair and slap my ass and you're still not doing it. Like, what? Oh, I'm scared, or like whatever. Like you gotta, someone has to go out
Take
on
the
a
bull by the
limb.
horns, yeah.
Yeah, get out of the bush. No way, I can't make that reference. In the bush, whatever. But get out of the woods and make a move. And
Uh-huh.
so in, in the bush. Okay, so 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 you are one of these people who started an OnlyFans during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I think we're going to be talking about this for hundreds of years in the future.
Truth be told, it was towards the end of the pandemic, and
Sure.
I actually had to ask somebody back in Australia the other day because they were writing an article. It was something anyway about my OnlyFans and getting on during the pandemic and when it ended. And I said, well, like, when did it officially end? Because I wasn't really quite sure exactly. Well, because here in California, like back where I'm from, people go to work in an office, whereas here you'd sort of drive around and you think, does anybody go to work? Because nobody seems to be dressed for work.
Well, that's always been LA, number one.
Yeah, it
it's
has.
always looked
LA
like
for
that.
as long as I've been here, yes.
Yeah. I used to live there, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm still in my pajamas at fucking 2 p.m. This is great. Yeah, that's an LA thing. But like, so what made you start an OnlyFans? And like, was it something you had thought about for a long time? Were you always a sexual person?
Yeah. So, I mean, as I said to you earlier before, sex was a sport for me when I was younger. I was definitely an endurance athlete then. But what made me start was I had a few, I just had quite a few people tell me, you should get on OnlyFans. And in the beginning, I didn't really know what it meant. And then I probably should have looked into it sooner, but it was a little challenging for me because nobody I knew, like I was living in Orange County at the time, but nobody I knew was on OnlyFans. Nobody, I really had to just kind of like with a, magnifying glass kind of like search and find myself. So that was kind of how I got on it. Now I, have made like a bunch of, other like OnlyFans creators and have friends and things, unfortunately they all sort of live in different places. But yeah, I had just heard it enough to investigate, and then that was the journey. I mean, then obviously, me coming from, when you start something like that, my own social media, I'm not like super active on. In fact, I used to be the sort of person that kind of when I would see, girls always, oh, look at me taking photos, I'd just be like, oh my God, I really don't ever want to be that kind of person. And now that is me. But so I had to start, like with zero socials, all of that, because that's how you drive traffic to your OnlyFans. But yeah, that's how it started. I just heard it enough, and then kind of there was a girl that was on my Facebook who I guess I'd seen her, but I hadn't really. It's like OnlyFans is quite difficult. So when you find the site, it's not that easy to find a person unless you know exactly their tag name. They don't make it easy at all. It's very difficult. So I think when I got on it, and because I know TikTok came about during the pandemic, but I wasn't on TikTok. And then my girlfriend told me later, that TikTok was a great place to learn about OnlyFans because there was a bunch of people talking about it. But I didn't really get on TikTok until after I got on OnlyFans. And then I realized I needed to be on TikTok to make, I needed to have all these social accounts like Twitter and Instagram and all of that.
Right. Yeah. So you started and you knew it was sort of like a sexual adult creation kind of place.
I knew it was that. It didn't really bother me. The reality of it is I live in California. There's like 50 million people here or something. I mean, there's so many people. It's so different from where I'm from in Australia, which is quite a small place, quite conservative. So I just kind of thought, why not? I mean, it's funny because when I was in my 20s, I'd had a couple of people back in Australia try to talk me into, making some porn. And in comparison to what I'm doing now, it was more geared towards like a female audience. But I just didn't have the balls to do it. I wouldn't have had a problem doing it, but I just was like, oh, I just don't know that, I kind of want to bring that kind of attention on my family. But, nearly being 50 years old, now I just realized that I have only one life to live. And I think, I truly know the landscape has changed from the 90s. So, I would have been 18 in 92 or 93. And, to do it then, and I'm glad too, because I'm pretty sure in the 90s, things, there would have been a lot of cocaine, there would have been a lot of partying, there would have been a lot of debauchery. And so I'm very grateful that I skipped that. But
well, there's still cocaine and debauchery, I'm sure. It's just not as good as the coke as it was in the 90s.
I'm sure, but I just know to like avoid that. You know what I mean? I've been there, done that, and I want to look good, right?
Yeah, so, for sure.
Vanity. But yeah, I just kind of, I am very comfortable with myself, my sexuality. I learned this really important little line is, your opinion of me is none of my business. So,
Right. I love that.
I'm not trying to, I feel good about myself regardless of likes on social media or, I don't need, I don't need that to make me feel good about myself. So
Sure. Yeah.
I kind of feel like here, in a way, I'm in a pretty safe kind of environment because LA is so big and I can just go about my daily business and I don't have to worry
Mhm.
about my son, for example, being harassed at school, which I know probably happens to people that live, in different places where there's less people.
Sure.
But yeah, I it also gives me a bit of a personal chuckle also just to like
I'm
think about
sure.
going
Yeah.
into porn like as a middle-aged woman. Like that to me still makes me laugh.
Well, I mean, laugh like funny haha or laugh like I feel empowered.
Laugh like I feel empowered. Like it's
Good.
it's funny because it's just not the conventional route, and not that I've ever really been conventional.
Yeah.
Kind of look conventional, but I'm not. And yeah, it just I as I said to you, like I have a little private laugh when I go on set, and there's all these absurd, obscure, like scenarios in the process.
Yeah.
So I laugh at me getting into porn as a middle-aged woman like that. I just it's a gift that I can because most people cannot.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome. And I think it's awesome that you have your athleticism and your health and a fun mindset about it. And like, as far as conventional route, I think we're done with conventional. I mean, if you look around, a game show host was just reelected president. And so I think convention is
Right.
completely out the window at this point. I think,
Things have changed.
OnlyFans, I think, and it's a hustle, like you said. Don't get, don't take it the wrong way, like, because it's hard work, right? And so,
It's about 90% marketing and about 10%
mm,
content. Yeah, marketing
yeah,
and sales.
yep,
So that's the
totally,
gist of the operation. The
yeah,
content part is the easy part, and then it's a business, and it's all marketing and sales.
yeah, and that's something that you have to be on it constantly on the socials and the whatever and doing all the things. And that, I think that for a lot of people, a lot of women who maybe didn't have a chance to be a porn star or a movie star or whatever, they're like, why wouldn't I make money on something I like doing and something that, gives me, like you said, a chuckle or makes me feel good or empowered? I say, fuck yeah. I mean, anybody who's trying to stand in the way of that or change that is just on the wrong side of history. I just
Well,
think,
so there is a huge element to it of desirability and feeling desired and stuff like that. So I think that's a huge part of the job.
mhm,
It's interesting because I now realize, I wish I was not so insecure when I was younger because men are not noticing the things that women are insecure about. I mean, when I look back at myself of some photos of my 20s, I'm like, wow, I wish I was as fat as I thought I was then. For example, and I was like tiny, you know what I mean? But
mhm,
just my perception looking back, I was very beautiful and just insecure. I mean, I presented as secure and confident,
sure.
but deep down, I was, insecure. And it's just, it's just such a relief to mature and actually find your strength and your power inside yourself and be like, this is me. And I like myself, and I don't need to try to pretend to be something that I'm not.
Sure. Yeah. Give me your fucking money, guys. But no, I think that's beautiful. I do. I think that's gorgeous. I think that is the message, right? With OnlyFans, which this new world that we're entering into. Look, I mean, next year OnlyFans is projected, just the adult side, the sex work side of OnlyFans is supposed to generate like $20 billion, and half of that is for them. And then, I think it's great.
Thank God for horny guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, right, and it's crazy. Like, that's. you could, way to monetize it. But the truth is, it's the oldest profession in the world, right? Sex worker.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. Yes, yes. It
Yeah.
is empowering in the respect that if that people, it's something you can really get. I can see how it could probably affect people where they could really like get off on that power trip, of like really
Sure.
you have control over men.
Mhm.
It's the power of the pussy, literally.
Yeah, if I was a woman,
It's a real thing.
I
It's a
would
real
just
thing.
yeah, I would just dominate every fucking dude. I would tell every dude what to do, left, right, and center. Give me food, money, whatever. I would totally take advantage of that. And why shouldn't women? Because it's not like the men on the OnlyFans, right? It's not like they're not getting something in return.
Yeah,
Although
I mean,
there's some shady people on OnlyFans too, but whatever. Every hustle has its shady people.
I'm sure there is, and I've heard stories of like I've had fans tell me that people have taken their money and not done this or not done that as they're supposed to, and I've just sort
Yeah.
of told them that they need to just contact OnlyFans because I'm sure if they didn't receive what
Right.
they paid for, then they should get their money
Yeah.
back. But yeah,
So what kind of things, like when you started, were you just like solo masturbating kind of content, or what did you start with?
that's what I started with. But as I said, what I had to do, I had to get on some other people's pages and I had to buy some content. I had to see what people were doing because I did not know what they were doing. So that's,
Mm-hmm.
I probably bought like 5, 6, pay-per-views from people just to get an
Yeah.
idea. Like I didn't know, for example, what a JOI was. Like I didn't know any of these terms. I mean, I have obviously watched some porn, but I wouldn't say that I was a real avid porn watcher, for example,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it definitely wasn't something I'd watch on the regular.
Right. And for those people who may be lost, and we love lost people, we welcome you all here. A JOI stands for jerk off instructions. So it's a video
Yes.
that she would make, instructing them how to masturbate
Get off.
to
Yeah.
their,
And
yeah,
usually there's
yeah.
a come countdown.
Yeah, and there's a countdown, and yeah, and they can be done in many different ways. It could be dommy, subby, whatever. I mean,
Have you
what's your
done
okay?
porn?
Well, yeah. I mean, the power of a good JOI. You just have to find your audience there, and that's the thing about OnlyFans. They can go and request that from you or whatever at any given time and pay for it. So at what point? So then you start doing JOIs.
Well, so what it was is I started all with solo content because I was
Sure.
single. I'd broken up with my boyfriend about a year prior or something, and I didn't have anybody to shoot content with, so that was the next hurdle, like which is actually kind of which was one of the reasons why I decided to go into mainstream porn because I just thought,
Sure.
wow, it would be so much easier if I was just meeting people that knew what they were doing because I can't tell you, try to make a video with a civilian. Fuck, I can't use this content. You know what I mean? It's like, so that happened,
Yeah.
and then you kind of get annoyed and, you're like, because your
So
content.
did you bring? Yeah, no. You have to monetize that shit. Did you bring a civilian home that agreed to do OnlyFans and they
Yes.
fucked the camera up?
Well,
Can you tell me this story?
Well, so I will tell you. So I go to some sober meetings and I ended up just recruiting a couple guys from AA.
Good for you. That's awesome.
and I think it gave them all a bit of a thrill. And like I never told anybody who I did it with, so I'm really good about keeping my mouth shut about stuff like that. And I would just cut their heads out, so nobody could see them. But that's how it started. And then it was just it's hard to because when you're shooting in front of a camera, it's not like if you were just doing it without the camera, you know what I mean? Because obviously you got to get all the angles, you want to see things like so it's very different. I mean, yeah, it's very different.
Yeah. I love that story.
And then they don't know because they've maybe just made like a couple of home clips, or you know what I mean, at
Sure.
home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's a very different story. And then guys get performance anxiety, So like,
Hmm.
I did find one guy, and he was actually pretty good. He was able to make about, I think we made like 20 videos or something. And then
Oh
eventually
shit.
I was like, yeah, no, thank you anymore. I'm done.
Okay, so it sounded like things were going really well. 20 videos is no small feat. Did he? What was the weirdness there? What happened?
I just think I just was like, okay, I'm just kind of done with this. I think we just find somebody else.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so you're doing OnlyFans. You're in the mainstream. You've been in the mainstream a year. Some of the wilder stuff. When we're getting close now to the end of the episode, like are you planning on getting a little more nuts on mainstream or OnlyFans? Can people plan to see like a double penetration or a gangbang or anal or any of these things that people?
Oh, I've shot anal. I've shot 2 anal
Oh,
scenes.
okay, for
I
mainstream or OnlyFans?
Yeah, for mainstream. I shot
Okay,
one for triple X job interviews, and then I won't mention the other company just because I don't think I'm supposed to. But
okay,
yeah,
yeah.
for
We
another large company.
we
But
know the
there's
drill around here. Yeah.
but so those 2 anal scenes. But I would be particularly interested to shoot a gangbang because so for me, I feel like that's super taboo, and I would never, like on a Friday or Wednesday night, I would never like just go and do that.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, like, I know I can get paid for it, but but in some way, like, the getting paid for it just gives me free agency to feel completely fine about it.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know why that is. It's just probably got a lot to do with, my upbringing, and,
Sure.
um, that's the only reason. But yeah, I would feel completely fine about doing it. I do want to do it because I know I'll never get the chance in my own private life. And I feel like if it's on camera, and it's the safest environment because
Hmm.
it's controlled, as opposed to if you're at a party or somewhere and people are drinking, and then I just feel like that's a bit of a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
But no, I
No.
would totally love to do a gangbang.
I mean, you guys heard it here first. Yeah, and I mean, I think you're totally right. Right, you get paid for it. It's controlled. It's probably going to be in some ways more
Safe.
pleasurable, more safe, whatever. You don't have to worry about this, that, or the other. Fucking Randy, who so and so having too many cocktails and he can't get hard and all that bullshit. And also too,
Well,
the thing that yeah, and the thing is a lot of women on the show who have done gangbangs, who have not, they've all said like, well, yeah, I'm a woman. Of course, I've had that fantasy at some point in my life. The difference is
right.
that now I get to go and try it out, and I think
Yeah.
that's a big point too.
Well, so porn for me really is allowing me to live out all my wildest sexual fantasies, I think. I mean, and I've done a lot of them, but there's a lot that I haven't done.
Yeah,
So I'm super excited about that because I feel like it's just a uber safe, controlled. It's all
sure.
recorded. Everybody's sober. There's no room for any kind of nefarious things going on. Um,
Yeah.
so it's actually perfect.
Yeah, no, I think so too. How many guys would you want for your first gangbang? How many guys would you prefer to have?
I haven't thought about it that far ahead. I don't know how many would it need to be, like
I
6, 8, 10, or something?
well, I think minimum is probably five, right? Wouldn't you say?
I don't know. I mean, I
Right. Yeah. No, I think I mean that's going to give so many people a lot to look forward to coming up in this new year. They're going to be like, okay,
and I,
it.
and and I also think too, like, I would even be happy if they were all black. Just like, just, I mean, not that it really matters. You could
Sure.
be yellow,
Yeah.
brown, black, white. It doesn't matter. But the black, I do like a lot of that black stuff.
That's. I
Like,
mean,
I like the black skin on the white skin.
yeah, and I think again, this is another example of like being able to be open and free and be able to like have the sex that you want to have. Who the fuck doesn't want that? I mean, come on.
Well, I don't think it's the sort of thing that I'd want to do on a regular basis, but I definitely need to nail down one of those for the books for myself.
Well, I think you're gonna get there. I think you're gonna get there, and you're gonna, yeah. Molly Manning, thank you so much for being on the show with me this week. I'd love to have you back in the future. We'll have to figure that out. Let's tell these party goers where they can find you on social media, where they can dump out barrels, bushels, baskets of cash all over you on OnlyFans, all the places.
Okay, so my OnlyFans tag is molly.manning_XX. My X or Twitter account is Molly Manning XXX. And my Instagram is official Molly Manning. And then I have a TikTok, which that's PG-13, but you can find me there. It's Molly Manning or Molly.Manning XXX.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We will talk very soon.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Big thank you to my guest, Molly Manning, for being with me on the show this week. Make sure you go check out everything she is doing. Go check out all of her stuff on OnlyFans. Buy some content. Support what she's doing. Be on the lookout for a gangbang coming soon, ? We don't know. She will be back. If you're loving guests like Molly, you want to see more guests like her, you also just happen to love this show, you want to be part of the party, you want to continue to show up every week, show some love, some appreciation, some desire for the show, but mainly you don't want to miss out. Well, how can you make sure that all of that happens? If you're listening to this on platforms like Apple, Spotify, iHeart, anywhere you're listening to this in the audio form, you could leave a rating, you could leave a review, but honestly, fuck that shit. You don't need to do any of it. What you need to do is make sure that you are subscribed to this show so you never miss a new episode every single Wednesday, especially if you're subscribed or you think you're subscribed on Apple Podcasts. They've been doing this weird thing. They're unsubscribing people to certain shows for some reason. We don't know why. We're trying to figure it out. So what you want to do, go to Apple Podcasts, go to Sex Party with Dustin Rybka. Upper right-hand corner, you're going to see a pause button or a check mark or something. A check mark is good. You're still in. You're subscribed. Good to go. Anything else, hit that button. Drop-down menu will appear. Click on resume subscription, resume downloads. Bing, bang, boom, bongo, bam. You're resubscribed. You're back. You're back, baby, right? If you're watching on YouTube, I love you. I see you. I appreciate you. If you're watching on YouTube, would you ever start an OnlyFans, and what would you be doing on it? Let me know in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, what can you do? You could like this video. You could like all the videos. You could leave comments. They can be nasty. They can be nice, whatever you want. I will engage on any of that. But the one thing you want to do so you never miss a new episode, a new party every single Wednesday, is that you want to make sure that you follow this show on YouTube. You want to subscribe to the channel. That way you never miss a goddamn thing. As always, I'm available in the DMs on Instagram, and I will see you all right back here next week.
Thanks for listening. The party continues next week. Click subscribe and let's make this a regular thing. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter @SexPartyFM. Follow Dustin @DustinRybka.